Hello. There we go. Fixed it. Now I'm too loud. Let me turn that down. Okay, can everybody hear me now? I think we are okay. Jenna says, yes, thank you so much, guys, for staying with me. Oh, seriously, tech difficulties will just, I don't know. They're just something else. Okay, I'm really glad that you guys are all here still. Thank you so much for bearing with me there. I'm glad that you can hear me. Let's dive in. So I know Barbara's here. Hi, Barbara. Jenna's here. Hello, Jenna. If you want to say hi, please use that chat function because that's what really makes this engaging and really makes it interactive. And any questions that come up, any comments you want to kind of chime in on, I love reading them. I love being able to interact with you on kind of that level because this platform that I've got set up for all of us to use is great because it's not delayed. So when we were on Google Hangouts, I was about 30 seconds in the future. So I couldn't really keep up with the conversation in real time. So now we can do that. So I'm really pumped. Thank you, Barbara. I'm glad that you can hear me. That was a little bit stressful, but we are good. And we are only a little bit behind. So let's just dive in. I really, really, really wanted to do this chat because it's such a big topic and clients of mine and you yoga teachers in the group, everyone always has questions about social media because it's such an ever-changing thing, but it's also so powerful for us to be using in our businesses and our yoga teaching, in reaching our audience. It's such a powerful tool for us to be using as effectively as we can. That being said, I know it's often really overwhelming. One, because we have to keep up with all of these new platforms that keep coming out, or keeping up with building our following, or keeping up with posting consistently. And social media can kind of become this whole full-time job in and of itself. So I understand that. I understand that as a yoga teacher, and I understand that as a designer in my own business. It's overwhelming. Like I can get very overwhelmed by social media. And I know that a lot of people I've talked to, whether in the group or not, through yoga teachers, if we've connected one-on-one, I'm sure that we've talked about social media because it is just this big, really powerful tool, but also really big kind of, it's a big workload. So let's dive in to talk about a few things. What I want to cover in this chat is definitely go over kind of what you should be focusing on for social media in your yoga teacher business, because maybe we should be on all platforms, but that's kind of unrealistic. So, or at least maintaining consistently a bunch of different platforms. So let's talk a little bit about where we should be focused, where our audience is, and that sort of thing. Let's talk about some of the content we can be posting on each of the channels and how to customize and change things up so that you're covering your bases and using each platform to its kind of maximum capabilities. And then we're going to chat a little bit about how to be more engaging with your content. So instead of just collecting likes, it's just everything. Every time I talk to someone about their social media strategy and their design and their branding on social media, I'm always driving home the point that it's not a numbers game. Yes, it's easy to be caught up and intimidated by vanity metrics. And vanity metrics are things like, well, that person has 1,000 people on their Facebook page that liked their page, and I only have 200. But if that person who has 1,000 people on their Facebook page only has a couple of likes on each post, or not, one comment here or there, the engagement rate is relative, and it's not about numbers. It's really just about how you're connecting with your audience and how engaging you are. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I want to give you some tips and tricks just in general about social media posting and strategy, and then a little bit at the end about streamlining, so how we can make it a little bit easier on ourselves to manage our channels. So let's dive into what to focus on. So yoga is a unique industry. It's got a unique audience, and it's people, it's trying to figure out kind of where your audience lives on social media and in the online world. And what I want you to consider when you're starting to focus on where you want to put your energy and your time for social media posting is I want you to focus on what your goals are with your audience. So let's break that down quickly. If you're a local-based yoga teacher, so if you teach just in person right now, your income is based on in-person workshops or privates or teaching at studios, then you want to be taking a social media strategy that is local based as well, that you can really kind of target and hone in on your community. If you have an online portion to your business, then you want to be taking that into consideration when you're talking or thinking about where your audience lives. So I want you to, instead of like, this is the strategy that I take, and this is the strategy I like to give my clients as well, instead of taking on every platform, there's so many I could list off and you might not even think about it. There's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Pinterest, Google Plus. There's just so many. So instead of trying to think you need to be on every single one of them, I like to pick out 2 or 3 main ones that I know my audience is hanging out in. And for yoga teachers, the main ones I would typically say, and this all depends again on your business structure and what you offer and to who, but typically the yoga industry is very present on Facebook, very present on Instagram. And if you have an online kind of portion to your business, then it still has a big presence on Pinterest. So things like sequences and great imagery for your articles of your blog, or if you've got a very online kind of aspect to your brand, Pinterest is a really great way to bring traffic into that. So definitely start to think about what your goals are for who you want to reach on social media and where they are. So, LinkedIn might be a really great place for you to start looking for, or kind of trying out if you are focused on corporate gigs, like teaching in corporate and workplaces, which I love. That's one of my favorite ways to teach is in workplaces. And so that would be a really great avenue for me to try and experiment and find some people that way, because LinkedIn is a little bit more of the business world. There's a lot more groups and business focused things. And if you're a local and in-person kind of yoga teacher, then that's a really great avenue to test out. And YouTube might be really great if you have like an online video portion of your business. If you have an online studio, YouTube is definitely where you should be hanging out. And using YouTube to either post promotional videos or little short sequences that lead into, your paid bigger sequences. So it's really about kind of breaking down each of the channels and figuring out exactly what your goals are, what your offerings are, and where your audience is going to be hanging out. So after this, you can take some time, or at least you can hop into the comments or into the Facebook group. And definitely, if you need some guidance around this, or you want to start asking the group about kind of where do you think I should be focusing my energy and my time, ask away. That's what it's there for. But yeah, pick 2 or 3 that you really want to put your effort and your time behind. Because if we were trying to spread ourselves too thin across all of them, it's not going to be consistent enough to be effective. And it's not going to be, I don't think as one person running a business that we can focus all of our attention and our energy on creating really great content consistently for like 10 different channels. So figure out what is going to be the most strategic and the best way for you to spend your time and where you're going to get the most engagement. So again, we're not trying to collect vanity metrics. We don't just want to collect a bunch of likes. I know it feels good initially, but it really means nothing if, if there's no engagement level and there's no real following to that or loyalty to you and your brand. So stop focusing on vanity metrics. I want you to throw those goals out the window. If your goal was to, reach 1,000 people on Facebook, or, get your Instagram following up to 10,000 followers, I want you to stop and pause there for a second and think a little bit more behind the scenes about what that's going to actually do for your business. If you're just focused on getting followers, if you're just focused on growing your following and the numbers, how is that going to help your business? So that's what I want you to start to take away from this, is just to start thinking about how you can narrow down and focus on 2 or 3 main ones. And that's not to say that I don't have I have a LinkedIn account. I've got accounts on a lot of these platforms, but I really only focus my attention on, like, for me personally, mine are basically Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest right now. I do a little bit of Twitter. It sort of kind of runs in the background for me. I'll explain that later. But those are my 3 main ones. And LinkedIn is slowly starting to grow. So I would say those are my top 3. I'm definitely on the 5 though. So let's chat a little bit about what you should be posting on these channels. So once you've figured out kind of your avenues and what you want to focus on, what do you post on those? So I'm looking at my notes here too, guys. Also, I should mention that my condo has had like fire alarm testing for the past week. So if it goes off, don't be alarmed, and I'm not going to run away on a fire alarm. So if you hear it, we'll just pause for a second. So what content to post on these channels? What should we be posting to really engage our audience and start to use each platform to its fullest capabilities? I posted in the group a little while ago, which was so funny and cute. It was that, if you didn't see it, it's in the pictures section of the group, but it's a little infographic, and it's a donut, and it says kind of social media explained with donuts. And it was showing you kind of in a funny, humorous way and cute way. Like on Facebook, if you were eating a donut, you would share that I like eating donuts. On Twitter, you would say I'm eating a donut. On Instagram, you would say here's a picture of my donut. On LinkedIn, you would say skills on how to eat a donut. So there's all these different ways that it breaks down the content to be posting on each, and it was really cute. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out after the chat. But let's talk about quickly, Facebook. What can you be posting as content on Facebook? So I use my Facebook page as an outlet for longer posts and for sharing kind of stories, for sharing articles and insights for my business, for sharing client sneak peeks, that kind of thing. So I share longer posts and like a little bit more in depth so that people who are seeing that are getting a little glimpse into, your business, and they're getting a glimpse into you and your brand. So as yoga teachers, I would definitely be using Facebook as a platform to start sharing stories about your classes, stories about how you theme your classes, maybe a little bit of teachings or philosophy around your yoga practice. If you've got a blog, definitely sharing your articles on your blog through Facebook and using it as a platform for that. So Facebook for me is really, it's really a sharing tool. So it's really about putting some voice behind my brand, behind my business. And Facebook changes its algorithms all the time, and people get really upset about this. And ultimately, we don't have control over this, but I do know that Facebook pages, okay, so a couple of little kind of insider tips and tricks about Facebook pages. They like consistent posting. So the more often you kind of post, the more visible your posts will be. The algorithm kind of takes that into consideration. And if you post links to your domain, or your website, the best practice is to actually remove that preview. You know how it pops up with a little thumbnail preview? Actually remove that preview and upload a picture instead. So upload imagery of what you're talking about instead, and keep the link in your post, in your caption, but take away that preview. And that usually ends up doing better in terms of reach. So there's little kind of tips and tricks there that you can sort of, you can kind of tweak your content and your captions to be a little bit more friendly to the algorithm, because Facebook page reach has significantly dropped over the years. It's been one of the ones that's dropped significantly. But if you ever want to run ads on Facebook or Instagram, you do need a business page. So something to think about. The other thing, so for Instagram, what you can be sharing on there, obviously Instagram is the platform for really great imagery. So if you've got, nice pose imagery, if you want to use your captions to instruct kind of alignment cues or chat a little bit about a sequence, the key for Instagram is one, great imagery, and two, kind of concise captions. So they can be a little bit longer, but people are scrolling on their phones. It's a smaller screen space. So you don't want to be taking up like paragraphs and paragraphs of a caption, because the chances of someone reading that are unfortunately very slim. So Instagram is a really great way to interact with other people in the yoga world and your audience and share kind of that beautiful imagery around your brand. And so you can, if you've got mantras, you can do them up really nicely in a little image, quotes. If you've got your schedule for your teaching that you want to post up there every once in a while, that's a great way to do it. And just make sure that the imagery is really kind of the focus here. So on Facebook, we talked about the words being the story. On Instagram, it's really an imagery, obviously, an imagery-based social media tool. Pinterest is also very, very visual, imagery-based. So the key to using Pinterest, again, if you want it, Pinterest has been a huge source of driving traffic to my website, and I've found clients who have found me through Pinterest, and it's been a really great tool ultimately for reaching my audience. And the key with Pinterest is using really great imagery, and it's vertical imagery. So Instagram's the square. Pinterest really favors vertical imagery. So if you've got a blog and that's how you want to be promoting your blog on Pinterest, it's really a good idea to create vertical kind of long rectangular imagery for promoting that and pinning it onto Pinterest. So definitely on Pinterest, I share all of my blog posts. You can share your poses with a little bit of a sequence below it. People love, like there's still a very big yoga database on Pinterest. If you've got, like a little sequence you can write out with some imagery, that would be awesome too on Pinterest. And again, keeping the caption a little bit concise, not super heavy on text is going to be key as well, because again, it's people scrolling through and they're going to have to click kind of like a see more or learn more kind of drop down. It'll cut off kind of a longer text. So you want to make sure whatever your main message is short and concise at the top. So that's a really great tool as well, again, for driving traffic to your website or your blog. And so just to recap, Facebook was kind of like the stories. Instagram is the imagery, and it's a really good way to be tagging other companies, other people, starting conversation, that kind of thing. And then Pinterest is really good, a key for like a search database and driving traffic. Twitter is really, it's that short, quick, your posts do not live for very long. The lifetime span of a Twitter post is very short. So it's good for kind of real-time updates and quick little tips. I like to use it even on Twitter to say, like, everyone stop, take a deep breath, take a little like yoga break or a meditation break, or have you stopped for 5 minutes to breathe today? Like little tidbits and little real-time updates. Heading off to, teach the yoga class, and then you can put a couple of hashtags in there to make it searchable. And that's it's a really good way. The other way I use Twitter is to interact with other people. So it's really great to be retweeting people and interacting and commenting on things, and replying to people who tweet your stuff, and that, like, vice versa. So it's a good interaction tool. There's also Twitter chats now, which I haven't dived too deep into that, but I've attended Twitter chats before, which is essentially when people just all go on Twitter at the same time and use one hashtag to kind of have a conversation and answer some questions. And it can be really engaging. I haven't figured out yet how effective it is for the yoga world. I definitely think for me, Twitter is fed my other updates. So I have my Facebook and my Instagram linked up to kind of feed content to my Twitter channel. So it sort of is like a self-sustaining channel for me right now. And if you have Twitter accounts and you've had any success or anything, I would love to hear about your experience or what you think about Twitter in the yoga industry. And definitely, if we want to take a second here and you want to type in and let me know which channels you're focusing on now, or if you have a question about, if you should be, anything like that, then definitely chime in. I'm going to keep just going, but as I see your comments or questions come up, I will definitely make sure I get to them. So the other ways to kind of come up with content to post is to do like a feature collaboration. So I just did this in the Facebook group, and I'm sure a few of you have seen it, but sometimes it's nice to reach out to another teacher or another person in the wellness industry and create like a collaboration. So basically what we did in the Facebook group, and you could do this in a different way across all of the channels, is I just teamed up with Nema Stream for a little collaboration feature where I shared their posts and their content and said, you guys should check this out because it's really great information. And they did the same in their group, and we kind of cross-referenced each other so that we could bring our audiences together. Because if you find someone who your goals and your brand sort of align and your audiences align, it's a really great way to kind of reach a bigger audience and have that kind of play off of each other's skills and audiences. And if you have something really great to offer and they have something really great to offer and you guys are speaking to the same audience, it really just makes sense to kind of team up and kind of cross promote each other or cross share content. And on Instagram, I see this lots where there's like feature threads where an Instagram account will feature someone and tag them, and then vice versa. So that's a really, really good way to start collaborating and getting content ideas out there. So finding people that you can kind of team up with, even like on Twitter and things. For me, I have a kind of a go-to bank of people that I will just share their content because I trust them. I know their process. I know their business. They align well with my brand. I know the content is good for my audience. So I'll just share it, and that's okay. Like, I don't mind retweeting and sharing other people's contents because I'm a really, really big fan of kind of community over competition. And I think it's important to be collaborating and teaming up with these like-minded people and people with similar audiences and purposes and goals to be helping one another. So that's a really good way to kind of develop content, is do some feature content, some feature following, some feature collaboration. And it's a really great way to just expand your audience. The other thing is I love doing series or countdowns or like higher engagement posts. So if you have like a maybe for like 7 days, you do one post per day. And then at the end of the 7 days, you say, okay, that was the sequence, like, or you do some sort of series of posts on whatever channel you choose to do. Or, if you've got a workshop coming up, or if you're going to be launching a new service, or if you have a retreat coming up, doing like a countdown series would be awesome. And that creates hype and engagement around your brand. It gets people checking back. It gets people familiar with seeing your content. So if it's a series and it's consistent, that just drives home that point of consistency that I love so much, where people are coming back to your channel, or they're seeing it a few days in a row and they're like, what is this? Or like it starts to become a little bit more ingrained and they are excited about your brand. When there's a countdown, it's so easy to be excited because it's a countdown. This is not wine also, by the way, guys, water. So series and countdowns do really well, I think, in engagement. And then let's just kind of transition that back into how to be a little bit more engaging on your social media channels. And by creating this content that I just talked about what to post kind of on each channel, by creating content and captions based on asking people questions. So asking your audience a question, and it can be like an open-ended question, maybe not just a yes or no. Maybe you want to do a yes or no, and that's really easy for them to engage and comment yes or no. Just ask questions to your audience, involve them in your posts instead of speaking at them all the time. And again, you don't have to do this with every post, but instead of speaking at them all the time, take a couple of times where you post to ask questions and see what people are, what they're working on, or ask people what they're struggling with their yoga practice, or, make it really easy for them to comment and engage and start a conversation on your post. The other really great way to have engagement is to create polls. So on Facebook, you can create a poll, I think, as an actual post, a poll. I don't think you can do it on Facebook pages, but I think Facebook groups and maybe your personal page, you can create like an actual poll where you give the options. It doesn't have to be, though. If you're on your Facebook business page, you can just create your own poll and say, vote 1, 2, 3, or 4. Twitter now, I think you can also create an actual poll where people can vote. And people love just checking things off and participating that way. So when you make it really easy, I think it makes the engagement level a lot higher. And it's a great way to do some market research for yourself as well. Ask your audience, be talking to them. The other thing is you could, if you've got enough of a following, or if you want to pair up and collaborate with another teacher or wellness professional, hosting a contest can be really powerful. I have yet to do this. I will be completely honest. I have a little bit of a fear for some reason about doing this, but it's on my radar, and it's something that I've been thinking about, is just how can I be creating hype and get people excited about things that I'm working on. And when you can, again, pair up with someone else, when you can not go in alone and you can have someone else, it can be even more, it's just a little bit easier to have someone there for accountability and for some support. But I know that contests, in whatever capacity, they can be really highly engaging and really successful in growing your audience and also just keeping the conversation going. Again, being engaging and getting people captivated by your social media posts. I'm a huge stickler for good imagery. I think that's so captivating for people, and not just on Instagram, on all of your posts. I think it's really important to create really strong imagery around your posts, and that's what gets people's eyes drawn initially to it. We're like, such a majority of us are visual people. We're visual learners. We digest things by seeing them. And so when we can kind of bring someone into our world a little bit more through imagery first, the second step usually is for them to start reading. So when you can use good imagery around any of your posts, I think you're doing a really good thing. And like I said, if you're posting a link on Facebook, remove that preview and upload an image. And on Twitter, it's always a good idea for any post you're posting. I would always say, if you can include imagery, include imagery. That's a really strong kind of way to get that post a little bit more noticed in a sea of other posts. And share worthy content. Just make sure you're putting effort. Not into every single thing that you put out there, but as you start to put out content, start to kind of ask yourself questions like, would I share this? Is this something I would share with my friends? Is this something I would share on Facebook or on Twitter or retweet? Is this something worth sharing? And again, it doesn't have to be for every single post, but as you really put effort behind some of those posts and you maybe are writing a longer post on Facebook, just stop and kind of ask yourself that question. Is this worth sharing? Would I share it if it wasn't mine? And then the last thing I wanted to talk about how to stay super engaging. Video is huge right now. And if you can hop on like a Facebook Live, or if you can upload a quick little video to introduce yourself to people on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, video is a very powerful tool because it connects people on a deeper level. Audio as well, like podcasts and all of that are huge right now too. But video is powerful because it shows the person behind the brand, and it shows a connection, a human connection that you just can't get with text and image. And text and image is great. It's powerful as well, but video is just, it's that other level. And social media platforms these days make it pretty easy for us to be using it. So if you've got an iPhone or a smartphone, and even if you've got just, the Apple headphones that come with the microphone, that's a great microphone to use. Like I used that to record my workshop things, and I tested a bunch of microphones, and that was the best one. And so if you've got kind of the basic tools to start creating video, it might be just something to test out on your channels to see how that engagement level goes. Okay, so that was a lot. If anyone, again, has questions, I'm just going to keep flowing here because I've got a few more things I want to touch on, and I don't want to take up everyone's whole day. But the other thing I wanted to just kind of take some time in this chat to talk a little bit about some tips and tricks around posting on social media and what to post. There's sort of this general 80-20 rule. And it kind of applies to so many different things. I'm sure you've heard it. Like I've heard it in terms of like how you eat and how your nutrition, 80% of the time do well, 20% of the time it's fine to kind of have room for, cheat days, whatever you want to call them. 80%, there's this 80-20 rule for a lot of things. And it sort of has been applied as a rule of thumb in social media as well. And this is not written in stone. Please kind of do what feels right for your business. But the 80-20 rule of thumb basically means that 80% of the time you're sharing other people's content, you're sharing tips, you're sharing tricks, you're sharing valuable resources that are not kind of selling you, if that makes sense. So the other 20% of the time is when you would post your blog posts. It's when you would post about your offerings. It's when you would post your schedule and come out to class. And so the idea here is that people know when you're kind of selling at them. And it's nice when people can follow you for value, and they know that following you means that they're going to get great information, great tips, great tricks, great whatever content that you create. They know that they're going to get that from you, whether that's through other people's content and little like snippets here and there. And they also know that they can follow you to know what you're up to and what you're working on. So that's the kind of 80-20 rule. And again, like I said, I have like a little bit of a bank of people that I like to share their content, and there's no strings attached. I don't expect them to share mine back. I just know that they have great content, and I feel comfortable sharing that with my audience and my brand. So that's a good way to maybe start collecting people's like websites or people that you know and trust, and share. And then again, if you do want to collaborate with them, reach out to them and say, I'm going to share this a bunch. Do you mind sharing this with your audience? Or I think this would be really great for your audience. But usually if you start to share it, and as you share it, the other thing I should tell you too is tag them in it. Tag their handle, tag their business, tag them so that they get a notification that you've done something nice and you've shared their content. And it's just a nice way to kind of like pay it forward and share other people's things. Again, that community over competition thing is really important to me. Canva is the thing I want to talk to you about for using imagery. So that's my big tip and trick for using better imagery is get on canva.com, play around, see what's out there and create it. Just be mindful of the templates that are on there. Everybody uses them. You've probably seen a bunch of them in and around other people's brands. But if you can start to customize a template for yourself and create really nice images on Canva to post with your content, then I think you'd be in really great shape. It's got all of the pre-made templates for the sizing. You don't have to figure out, what size do I need to make for my Pinterest imagery? What size is a Facebook picture? It's all on there already for you. It's super easy. I love it for clients. It's simple. It doesn't give you total flexibility or customization like what I would be using in my design programs. Definitely not. But it is a really great place to start making better imagery for your social media. 3 is pay attention to your biography, little profile sentence that you get, and your captions. I think it's important to use this space really wisely and be creating kind of a little bit more call to action or a little bit more about in-depth about who you are, and make sure that in your bios, if you have a website, your bio, like your URL should be in all of your bios, like hands down. just make sure that you're using that to tell a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where people can find you. And the captions too. Use that space. Hashtags are great in some cases, and if you use them effectively for reaching things and reaching people. And like I said before, if you're sharing someone's content or you're talking about a brand or you're talking about a company or another teacher, tag them in it. I'm sure that people appreciate it, and it's a way of connecting again with other people to potentially collaborate down the line. Respond to your comments and make sure you're interacting with your audience. So if people comment on a picture, Instagram, I find Instagram to be a little bit spammy sometimes with comments, and you can sort of tell like which ones are authentic and which ones aren't. But those authentic comments where people are actually reaching out to start a conversation, respond back, maybe hop on their channel and see if there's something that it can engage a conversation that way, and just be authentic in the way that you're communicating with people, but communicate with people, reach out and chat with them and engage with them. Start building relationships instead of just building that following. And the last one, which is super important, brand your content. So make sure there's some element on all your content that links back to you, because I've said this before, but as people are scrolling through their social media here, there, and everywhere, and you know, it's such a fast-paced world that it's so easy to get lost. It's so easy for people to see your content, love it, and then forget about it. And if you can brand certain aspects of that and include some sort of aspect of your brand and be consistent with that, that's increasing the likelihood that they're going to remember you and be able to tie it back to you way more easily than if it was just a generic, image or something like that. So make sure you keep your voice and your brand present on all of your content. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about streamlining this. So I've put into place a big streamlining process for my social media, and it's starting to really relieve a lot of burden of posting and that kind of like anxiousness around social media. And what I've started using is I use Buffer. I use Buffer to schedule my posts on Facebook and on Twitter. And that sort of just relieves a little bit. At the beginning of each week, I go on and I schedule kind of my week's worth of content that's going to be just easy shares. And it's just been so nice to get that kind of out of the way. And it's sort of on automatic mode as it's going through the week. That's just the kind of basic sharing things that I would be sharing. The general and kind of the engaging posts and the interaction that comes throughout the week. Like I still log on to all of these channels and respond personally to comments and retweet things that are on the go. And I still try and be real time about it, but using Buffer to schedule in the bulk of those just sharing posts has been really helpful. And I think they have a free plan to start. And then any of their paid plans, you have a trial, and there's lots of different options there for you. I use Grum. It's called grum.co, and I use that to schedule Instagram posts, which is one of the only Instagram schedulers because Instagram doesn't actually let you schedule your posts very easily. So I use grum.co to schedule my Instagram, and that I think you pay per month for that, but it like on a weekend or something, or if I'm going to be away and I know I'm not really going to be tied to social media, but I want to still keep that consistent posting up, I'll schedule in posts on Instagram to put up, just kind of maybe general chats or stories or anything like that. And I've recently started using, if you're a Pinterest user and you feel like that's a good avenue for you, I've started using Board Booster. So it's called boardbooster.com. And basically it kind of puts those pins on auto as well. And it sort of goes through and pins your own content to different boards as needed. And if there's like, if you've pinned it and there's a duplicate, it'll delete ones that have the lesser repins and things like that. So it sort of puts Pinterest a little bit more on auto, and it's really helped with keeping that nice and clean for me. And also it's really grown. My Pinterest has really grown since I started using it. So it's been really helpful for that as well. So those are kind of the three schedulers that I use. The other thing I wanted to say about kind of blocking off time and scheduling is that, so I said at the beginning of the week, I schedule on Mondays mornings, I schedule time to go through my social media bank, and just, I have a library saved on Buffer, and I can just pick and choose what I want to share and what I want to say about each thing. And I'll schedule that in. So that's been a really huge time saver, is just to kind of bulk or batch schedule my content. The other thing though that I want to say about blog posts, if you're someone who has a blog and it sort of doesn't have to be like I wrote this blog, I posted about it, and now it's gone. If your blog post is relevant to not just one time of an actual time. Like if it's we call it evergreen content. If it's just good, it can be shared at any time of the year. It's like just ongoing good content. Then it's always nice to kind of repurpose that on social media. Change up how you write about it, change up the title of how you write about it, and share it kind of as often or as you think is necessary. So if you have really great content, but you wrote the blog a year ago, but it's still really relevant and helpful, then just repurpose that. And you can even repurpose it on your blog and republish it if you want to. And take that, come up with maybe 3 different ways to talk about it or 3 different approaches to that topic, and create your imagery around that, 3 different images maybe that you're using, and just be able to kind of cycle through that as you promote it or you share it throughout the year. So I definitely think that if you've put so much time and effort into your blogs, the amount of people that actually see our content is a fraction of what we're reaching a fraction of our following. So that's a really important thing to keep in the back of your mind, is that if you've got 1,000 people following you on something, a fraction of them are the ones seeing your content. And then a fraction of that are the people clicking on it. So it's okay to repurpose content and reuse content as well. So if you're struggling with what to post, definitely go back into your blogs or your archives or your other previous posts, repurpose it a little bit and reuse it. There's nothing wrong with that. And it saves us some time to have to like recreate content all the time. So I think I covered a lot of stuff there. I kind of flew through it. And just because we had some technical hiccups at the beginning, I didn't want to take up too much time, but I definitely think I got through the bulk of what I wanted to chat about, which was really to focus, really to narrow down, kind of declutter your social media stress and figure out where you want to put your time and energy behind. So figure out what you want to focus on, 2 or 3 channels to just put your full energy and attention behind. Based on what we talked about which one's good for what, think about what your offerings are, who your audience is, what would fit best. Consider the content you want to be posting. Facebook may be longer stories, you're sharing insights. Instagram, share your really beautiful imagery, share your quotes, your mantras, your sequences, your poses. Twitter, share your real-time updates, engage with people. LinkedIn, you can share your upcoming maybe workshops for workplace people, or if you've got offerings about workplace yoga, you can reach out to people on LinkedIn. So yeah, just start to kind of think about where your audience is and what your offerings and your purposes are, so that you can start to kind of just focus your energy and be more effective on 2 to 3 rather than being kind of spreading yourself thin across like 10. So be more engaging, ask questions, get really kind of get down to being interactive with your audience instead of, again, collecting those vanity metrics of likes. So likes are great, make us feel good, but they are just vanity metrics until we have some sort of proof or engagement that they're helping our brand or helping our business. And then we talked about some tips and tricks, the 80-20 rule, repurposing content, repurposing blog posts, share your good imagery, get on canva.com, and then really try and work to streamline your process. Figure out what's going to be best for you. Figure out if scheduling makes sense for you. Figure out if maybe you just instead want to dedicate like an hour or half an hour a day to going through your channels, and maybe you take that half hour each day to just go through, post, and respond to your audience and things like that. So figure out a process that makes sense to you. But I think building a process is really helpful in streamlining things and just taking that burden off a little bit. I swear, once I have budget or I feel like it's the time, I have to hire someone to just like kind of help me with this, because it's a huge workload, but it's also it's so powerful. It's free. It's essentially free, and we can reach millions of people. So it is powerful. It's definitely worth being on if you are considering whether you should even be on social media. I think it's for everybody to consider and be on. It's just how you use it and the strategy that you build behind it based on your business and your goals and what makes sense for you. So I think that there's kind of a place for everybody to be on there. It's just a matter of figuring out what that looks like for you and your brand. So does anybody have any questions that I didn't cover or that is kind of stirring in them? I'm going to stick around for like another minute while I wrap up. So if you've got them, put them in the comment section, or there's like a question section below. I don't think, yep, we're good down there. Feel free to just reach out. And then you all know that, of course, you can reach out to me on the Facebook group. That is what it is there for. I definitely just use it. There's so many people there that are willing to help, and there's so many people with such good expertise in different areas. And if you've got questions specifically for me, tag me. I'm happy to answer them. It's really there for us to all just be able to have a resource to go ask questions like this. You know, like if I'm really struggling with where my audience is, this group of over 400 people is a really great place to just ask people who, one, have experience of already going through it and maybe testing things. If you need advice or something like that, there's always people in there willing to help, and definitely just tag me if you need me. And yeah, and I also wanted to, I've mentioned in the past chats, but the Building Your Brand workshop now has payment plans available. And there's a whole kind of module dedicated to social media design and strategy and things like that. So there is a module in there to help with designing really great imagery, branding your content, all of that sort of thing. And the payment plans I launched because I think it's just easier kind of for people to manage the cash flow when it's just monthly payments instead of a bulk kind of investment. So in down below, somewhere down here, there is an offers section, I think, and I've put in a little button there where you can learn more. Let's just make sure. I think it works. I don't. Anyways, I have no idea. We're going to get this together. I promise. I will figure this out so much smoother soon. But if you want to check out the workshop and the payment plans, you can go over to youryogabrand.com. The workshop tab is at the top. It's all there. All the information is there. So for sure, if you want to check it out, that's where it is. It's in the group. There's a button. So it's accessible to you. So yeah, definitely please use the group. Let me know if you've got questions about social media, if you're struggling in any way about that. And otherwise, I don't see any questions, but thank you so much, everybody, for joining me today. I hope you got some little tips and tricks out of this. And thank you for bearing with me at the beginning when you could not hear me and I was talking into silence. And for sticking around. So you should be able to get a replay if you've kind of just had this on in the background. There should be a replay sending to you, I think, tomorrow automatically so that you've got access in case you need to go through anything or you missed anything or, something didn't really make sense the first time around. All right, everybody enjoy your day. It's super rainy and dreary here, but I don't know. I kind of like it. We need it here. We've had a really hot summer. So have a great day, morning, night, wherever you are, wherever you're listening from. And I will talk to you all soon and see you all in the Facebook group. Mwah!